It is just after 10:30 here on July the 21st, 2018. I'm James Brierton, live from Charlotte. We are back live on the platforms of the Carolina Weather Group, covering severe thunderstorms across the Carolinas. This is both North Carolina and South Carolina. Joining me once again, we have Scotty Powell from the foothills, where he's been watching the situation in his neck of the woods. And Chris Jackson, who was out storm chasing, is back at his home near Columbia. He'll be logging on in just a few minutes to talk with us because he is just back from this neck of the woods. We've taken our radar. We're starting in real close here. We're in South Carolina between Columbia and Greenville-Spartanburg. We have this multi-county severe thunderstorm warning. The one we're looking at right now on the left side of your screen is the one that we are paying careful attention to and watching very closely along with the National Weather Service. Scotty Powell, I know you guys were looking at this just before we came on the air. Right now, still a severe thunderstorm warning, but there are some characteristics of this, I believe, that are catching our eye. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, James. I was looking at the velocities here, and let me pull that up, and I can show you what I'm talking about.
And velocities being like wind and motion inside that storm.
Yep. We're using a new program, so James, can you see this?
I cannot.
Okay.
We are using a new program. We use Google Hangouts most often to talk amongst each other, and it threw us into Google Meetings. Is that what this thing is called? Okay, now I can see you, Scotty.
Okay, cool deal. So this is the storm that James was talking about. It's heading towards the Greenwood, South Carolina area. And we've seen some rotation at the mid-levels just about 5-10 minutes ago. That has weakened, but still some very strong winds. I'm going to put this inspector tool on the storm. And as you can see, I mean, there's a potential wind gust of about 67 miles per hour. So even though this storm may not be rotating as strong as it was, it's still producing some very gusty winds out there. 67 miles per hour. That's definitely going to do some damage to trees and some structures, maybe like mobile homes, outdoor sheds, things like that. So these winds are pretty stout, and it's continuing to move off to the southeast into the Greenwood, South Carolina area. But again, watching this storm, it showed some signs of rotation, but right now that rotation has kind of broadened just a little bit. So, but again, this severe thunderstorm in the Abbeville, Greenwood, South Carolina area. And James, I'm not sure. Let me see if I can click on here. Let's see. This warning goes into. Yep. These storms are this severe thunderstorm warning continues. There we go, for another 50 minutes or so. So if you live in the Greenwood, South Carolina area, this is just to the west of Columbia. This severe thunderstorm moving into that area. There's also another severe storm between Charlotte and Columbia. Let's go to that one right quick. Oh, and it looks like they just expired that warning. So again, this storm not warned, but again, another strong storm. Let me pull up that radar for you. That would be out of the Columbia area. And this storm, again, in the northern or southern portions of Chester County, moving into the just south of Great Falls along Interstate 77. So this storm also had a history of producing some severe thunderstorm, severe gusty winds, but has weakened below severe weather criteria. But again, our main focus right now is on this cell that is in the upstate of South Carolina, moving towards the Greenwood, South Carolina area. Again, very gusty winds possible with this, as you can see in these shadings, anywhere between 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. So this storm moving into the Greenwood, South Carolina area in about the next 15 to 30 minutes. So if you live there or maybe know someone who lives there, make sure that they're aware of this situation. And unfortunately, as we've heard in the national news, of the tragedy in Missouri, a severe thunderstorm warning should be taken just as serious as tornado warnings because of the possibility of those gusty winds. Just remember, these storms, no matter if the wind's rotating or blowing in a straight line, it can still cause damage and injure you. So it's always good to take these warnings very seriously. So again, that severe thunderstorm warning is going on for the next 45 minutes or so. I'm going to take a look here in the weather chat. It looks like we may have some trees down and power lines down on Highway 29. So this storm does have a history of producing some damaging winds in the area. And James, not many more severe thunderstorm warnings out there. We have this one in South Carolina. We also have one over in the Fayetteville area. So I'll quickly go to that one. Well,
Yeah,
yep,
I've got them up here actually for you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. While you're keeping an eye on that situation in South Carolina, and I know Chris just hopped on too, I just want to show everyone here we do have a still severe thunderstorm watch out for a good number of counties in South Carolina. Not as many as when we were on with you a little bit earlier. They've actually just in the last few minutes made this watch box a little bit smaller. So this is north of Columbia, south of Greenville, Spartanburg. In those communities in South Carolina is where we still have the severe thunderstorm watch out until about 2 a.m. or so, but they've dropped it for the upstate of South Carolina and for those few communities that were in North Carolina. Those have now been dropped. Where I am in Charlotte, I was waiting to see if they were ever going to extend it into Charlotte. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Looks like the closest we get is that little peninsula of Lancaster County that sticks out. But I know we've got Chris just back to Columbia, back from storm chasing. He was in upstate South Carolina doing a lot of driving around when we talked to him at about the 7:30 hour or so in Anderson County. Chris, what did you find out there?
Can you guys hear me? Awesome. Just a bunch of what I saw earlier. Just a lot of storms. And then as darkness started to fall, visibility became an issue. And just come on back to Columbia.
Oh, we may have lost James there. So we'll continue on, Chris. So you was able to be in the upstate of South Carolina today. Kind of recap your experience today, exactly what you saw. I know our internal chat that we have with each other. You sent us some amazing pictures and videos. So kind of recap what you saw today.
Basically, just went up 26 to 385, and then went over toward the state line right around Lake Hartwell and the was it Fairplay area just south of Westminster. And nice little thunderstorm rolled right over Lake Hartwell. Got a nice lowering on it for a while. Had a couple, 2 or 3 little wall clouds at one point, and that storm actually weakened right before sunset, and actually just totally fell apart within about a 20-25 minute time frame. Then headed back up toward Greenville, and by that time it was getting really dark, and the storms didn't look all that impressive, so just made the decision to come on back to Columbia.
Sounds good. And did you encounter any maybe some large hail damage and winds or anything that you've seen?
I actually didn't see any wind damage, no hail. I barely even saw a shower of rain because I just tried to avoid the rain shafts and the hail shafts at all costs.
I don't blame you on that. I think James is streaming some of your video that you shot earlier, and those storms were quite powerful. They also affected western North Carolina.
Definitely a wall
Here in the foothills, several of our counties. I know Cleveland, Rutherford, McDowell, Burke, Catawba, Caldwell, Alexander, all was under a severe thunderstorm warning at one time or the other. Not a lot of damaging wind reports, but we did get some large hail reports up to golf ball size hail just north of the Hickory metro area near the community of Bethlehem in Alexander County. So some large damage in hail there. And James, I don't know if you're back with us.
I'm here, Scotty.
Okay, so you're good. You're back with us. And James, we've really kind of seen the severe weather start to dissipate with that one warning in South Carolina. And we've got one warning just north of Fayetteville.
Yeah, that's right. We don't have a ton to actually show you, which is why, even internally, to be blunt, we were discussing not just half an hour ago whether or not we were going to be coming back on for anchored coverage because we don't have a ton of warnings. We talked a little bit about this one in South Carolina here that really grabbed our attention because of the velocity readings that we did decide to come back on. But as Scotty's been alluding to, if you're in North Carolina, we do have one more cell that is of interest. And I apologize, my computer seems to be running this really slowly here, but this is just north of Fayetteville. And so if I can get this to load on up here, I will let you know that we do have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 11:15 for Harnett County. So a reminder, severe thunderstorm warning means that we're looking for things including 60-mile-per-hour winds. Scotty?
That's right. And I'm going to pull up radar right quick, see if I can do that. Again, we're using a new program, so bear with us for just a moment. Let's see if we can get this. All right. All right, James, can you guys see it?
Got radar.
Okay, it's good. Cool. So this is the severe thunderstorm that is just outside of the Sanford area. This is moving actually straight towards the Raleigh-Durham area. Raleigh's right up here. So the southern suburbs of Gardner and Clayton, Knightdale, Wendell, Zebulon, even down towards Smithfield. These storms are moving into the area. So if you're traveling or getting ready to travel on Interstate 40 between Raleigh and Wilmington, this severe storm is going to be moving into that area. Again, we can check out the velocities here, and that's the winds that we're looking at. We'll put the little inspector tool on. As you can see, nothing like we saw up in the upstate of South Carolina, but we're still seeing 45, maybe 50 mile per hour wind gusts that's moving through the Lillington area of here in eastern North Carolina. And if you live in Angier, Bowie's Creek, over there towards let's see, I think that's Pfeiffer or Campbell University. That's in that area. So again, this is going to be moving into the Raleigh-Durham area, especially the southern suburbs of Raleigh. But again, 45, 50 mile per hour wind gusts with a lot of lightning out there and definitely some heavy rain. So again, we're watching this storm move into the Harnett County area. This warning goes for another 25 minutes or so. Again, 60 mile per hour winds possible as it moves into Harnett County. Lillington, Dunn, Angier, Irwin, Coates, Anderson Creek, Raven Rock State Park, Bowie's Creek, and Timberlake all in the line of the storm that you can see here in the next 30 minutes or so. So, James, I'll give it back to you.
Sure thing.
For anchoring.
Thank you very much, Scotty. And I know we've got a lot of people watching us right now on this special live edition of the Carolina Weather Group. Thanks so much for checking us out here on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. You know, we are here every Wednesday night with our scheduled topic where we bring on guests to talk about weather, science, and technology affecting the Carolinas. And then, as you can see, we're obviously here when severe weather breaks. I'm going to look over to the left because I know we got a lot of people watching on Facebook in particular. So I'm going to see exactly who is watching and whether you guys have any questions for us. We can make sure we get those answered. So I see we got Carol watching from Granite Falls. Thanks so much for checking us out here this evening, where she is reporting. Yeah, so she was saying she saw some of those wind, 60 mile per hour winds inside of thunderstorms before too. So, you know, certainly we solicit your reports here in the comment section of our live stream, questions, comments, concerns. Also, if you're in a position to do so, you know, obviously the National Weather Service wants to hear from you as well too. So that's hashtag NCWX or hashtag SCWX if you're in South Carolina to report in exactly what it is that you're seeing. The other thing we like to do here is bring up webcams when we have them, but I'm not familiar. And so I will put this call out to the community that, you know, if you know of any webcams available in the areas where these storms are, certainly do let us know, because I know we don't have any eyes on the ground right now, and it's especially hard after dark to watch these things. But, you know, we'll watch how this situation plays out, as the National Weather Service is not only continuing to do the nowcasting, but they're still working on all those storm reports from the storms that occurred throughout the day, including, you know, getting in more reports of thunderstorm wind damage in Anderson County, where Chris was earlier. And so, you know, it seems like, Chris, you definitely picked the right location when you drove north from Columbia.
Absolutely. And I was just checking the Greenville chat, and if you guys see that, reporting a tree across the roadway at Oak Hill Drive at Midway Road, 3 miles northeast of Anderson right now.
Yeah, it seems like they're have the opportunity right now to catch up on a lot of that, because I know that certainly takes some time for them to verify those reports and then get them out there. I see we do have a question from Andrew asking about Lancaster, South Carolina. Nothing happening really right now in your neck of the woods, other than you do have that severe thunderstorm watch out until 2 a.m. along with your South Carolina county neighbors. No one else really right now in North Carolina is still under this watch. This is where we expect things to happen until 2 a.m. if we are going to get any more storms. They are slowly eating away at this as this last line of storms comes on through. But remember, you know, the watch isn't the only place we could get severe storms. We certainly had it happen earlier today in the foothills. We're outside of the watch. We were getting reports of severe weather, but you can also see we still have this other severe thunderstorm warning that is going to be in the area between Fayetteville and Raleigh under the jurisdiction of the National Weather Service in Raleigh for Harnett County until 11:15, and that's almost nowhere near where this severe thunderstorm watch is. So we'll keep an eye on that. And if you are watching from other areas in North or South Carolina, just reminding everybody that we do have this slight risk of severe weather that the Storm Prediction Center puts out. That's that yellow area. That's essentially a 2 out of 5 on the severe scale, with 5 being the worst. Dark green is marginal. That's essentially a 1 out of 5. And that light green is more run-of-the-mill general summertime thunderstorms towards the bottom of the scale. But as we creep later on into the overnight, we're going to have to look at day 2's convective outlook, which is going to show that this convection will continue to the south and east, closer to the Carolina coast. But being that a lot of this is going to be happening over the overnight, I would at least suspect that it'll be less interesting, less intense than what we've seen during the daytime, because certainly in the Carolinas today, where I am in Charlotte, it got hot, it was sunny, we could cook that atmosphere a little bit. Apologize that it seems like the day 2 convective outlook doesn't really want to load, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give that, guys, kind of a kick and a restart. But I know we have other panelists not currently on with us, but are standing by closer to the coastline to update us certainly on the situation there if need be.
Yeah, I think the possibility is there. Let me see if I can pull up.
Please do, and I'm going to give my EDD a restart.
Okay, let me see if I can pull it up. I've got it somewhere in here, so bear with me. It's in my bookmarks. Let's just go this way right here.
Andrew, watching from Lancaster County, is asking about Sunday, and we came out of this really nice pattern, but I think we're going to get some more rain here the next few days, on and off, for a majority of our area until about Wednesday or so, I think, Scotty, right?
Yeah, that's a good point there, and we can look at that here in just a minute. We'll talk about the potential for rain. So I've got the day 2 pulled up, so let me share that with you guys for just a second. Oh, Chris has got it. Good. So Chris and James both have it. Awesome. So as you can see, the marginal threat for at least our viewing area would be in the far southern extent of South Carolina towards the Hilton Head area, just south of Charleston. So if you're listening from Charleston, I know we have a lot of followers there that follow Shay and Jared. Definitely could see some severe weather there, but we do have a general thunderstorm risk for all of the Carolinas. And what's going to happen is we're going to see more of a rainy day type deal with showers and storms moving into the area. I can pull up.
Yeah, I've actually got the model up here. The latest full run of the HRR, which, if you're not familiar with, folks watching at home, is our hourly rapid refresh high resolution model. Let me just recenter that a little bit on your screen if you don't mind, because that is pretty squarely in mid-Atlantic, and I feel like I'm cutting off South Carolina. So we certainly don't want to do that. And so, what we look at when we look at these models is the very first frame, we can kind of get a sense of whether or not the data is accurate based on how it compares to real-time radar. And it's not terribly far off based on positioning, other than I would say, and Chris or Scotty, you guys give me your take, I think it's probably got a little too much activity. So, we'll just kind of go into this model run with the idea that maybe it's a little hyperactive.
Yeah, and James, since you've got that up, I've got it up on my screen, but since you're sharing, would you pull up the NAM 3 model?
Sure. So the NAM being our North American model.
That's correct. And it's the short range model, but it goes out a couple more hours than what the HRR does. And I was wanting to show you what I expect to happen tomorrow with this system. And what we have is a kind of an upper level low, as you can see up over the Ohio, Kentucky area. And what happens as it starts to spin up tomorrow, we get that daytime heating and things like that. We're going to see another round of showers and storms start to develop around the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock time frame in our mountain and foothill communities. And as we go through the day tomorrow, that rain will it's going to like pivot. It's an upper level low, so it's going to circulate counterclockwise and then affect the Triad area up towards Raleigh. And the concern tomorrow is we may see some training of these cells. And when training of cells with heavy rain here in the summertime, that's where our flood potential starts to kind of creep up. So tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, we're gonna have to watch those hydrological issues, and that's where we could see some potential for flooding to affect the area. I know there was some heavy rain earlier today that developed in the
Lake Lure area.
Lake Lure, Henderson County area. And so that's going to have to be watched. So I'm looking at the. Let me pull this up for just a second.
So many of those communities now in the mountains relatively dry. We do have a few pockets of heavier rain, even moving back through Lake Lure for what must feel like the 100th time today.
Yeah, they have been hammered there. So let me present this to you guys, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is the Weather Prediction Center. And this is kind of like those severe weather outlooks that James was talking about. We have our marginal, slight, moderate. Well, this is the threat for flash flooding. This is day 2 excessive rainfall from 12Z Sunday, which is about 7 a.m. to 12Z Monday, which is 7 a.m. Monday. So from 12 a.m. or 7 a.m. tomorrow morning to 7 a.m. Monday morning, you can see there's a marginal threat out for a good chunk of North Carolina for some flash flooding. And then that, because of the upper level low, those storms kind of training over each other, that's where I'm afraid that we may see some flooding, especially in our mountain and foothill communities, as we'll get that upslope flow. What we're talking about upslope flow is that air is getting pushed up the mountains. And when it gets pushed up the mountains, it provides a little bit more lift, and it kind of wrings out the moisture in the atmosphere. It's kind of like wringing out a sponge after you've washed your dishes, so that those mountains create that extra additional lift, where we see a lot of the heavier rainfall in your mountain and foothill communities. So I'm concerned about that. And we'll look at day 3. And as you can see, the concern for flooding extends into your Monday to Tuesday morning time frame, where we see a slight risk of flooding start to develop in the western and central North Carolina areas, as well as the coastal areas of North Carolina. And that marginal threat extends down into South Carolina. So for Sunday, Monday, and even as we go throughout the next few days, the potential for seeing some flash flooding in the North Carolina and South Carolina area is going to start to increase, especially with that upper level low. We say in the weather world, upper level low, weatherman's woe. And that's the concern, is this upper level low is going to be really a slow mover, and we're going to see those storms start to train over the same places, and you get 1 to 2 inch rainfall rates per hour, and you get that for an extended amount of time. That's where we could see some flash flooding. So today was a severe weather threat. Now we're going to transition more into a flash flood threat for the next few days.
Yeah, we've got Jennifer watching from just outside the Charleston area. She is in Ridgeville, South Carolina, asking about the forecast there. And so it's really the same thing that Scotty's been talking about for a lot of us, and you can actually see the kind of the Charleston forecast here. Those green bars representing the chance of precipitation, with the highest of those bars being upwards of 50-75% as we make our way through much of the work week. So take those umbrellas and those rain boots with us. Chris, I know you've been watching the situation right now very carefully, and I think we have an update from the National Weather Service with regards to that severe thunderstorm warning that they've been looking at there in South Carolina. Is that right?
Yeah, I saw they just canceled the warning for, I believe it was Anderson County.
I believe so.
Yeah, Anderson County, and the warning still extends down toward Greenwood, 96 back over towards Saluda, just to the west of Saluda.
Yeah, and I think I saw you as Scotty and I were talking, kind of doing a cross-section of that storm. Are you still seeing some mid-level rotation in it?
Not so much anymore, not like it was just a little while ago. It seems to be more straight line right now. And if you look, you just see that nice big bow echo. I don't know if you're sharing my screen or not, but I'm actually looking.
Yeah, we got you.
Radar scope, and just looking out to the south of this. Let me take off this inspector tool.
And we've got Chase watching on Facebook. And Chase, this is the exact storm that you were asking about.
Yeah, you see this little line right there. You see nice outflow coming out from that storm, and everything just looks like it's a straight line wind right now. Not seeing any kind of couplet or anything like that, like we were 20 minutes ago or so.
And for anyone who's unfamiliar with straight line winds, it's still a very damaging wind situation. And, in certain scenarios, and I'm not saying this is necessarily one, but we've had situations where after a storm rolls through, people are looking at damage, maybe down trees, snap power lines, and they might say, oh, a tornado came through here because they're looking at the magnitude of that wind damage. But it could very well be straight line winds that sometimes causes that. So that's why we're watching this cell very carefully, because of that chance for damaging winds, whether it be a tornado or straight line winds. But right now we don't have. I should just clarify to say we don't have a tornado in this. We're just watching very carefully for that damaging wind potential of this severe thunderstorm.
That is correct, James. One other thing I want to pop up, and sorry to harp on this heavy rain stuff. I know.
You live in the foothills. You know how the heavy rain goes. That was not a month and a half ago.
Yeah, I know we're talking severe weather, but I'm really starting to get concerned about this. Let me share the screen one more time, and I promise we'll stop about the heavy rain. But here is a look. Let me know when you can see this. You guys have it?
Yes.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so this is the look, a week in advance. This is what we're expected to see over the next 7 days. And
that red is rain, not temperatures.
Yeah, this is rain. So look along the South Carolina, North Carolina coast, especially from Myrtle Beach up towards the Morehead City area, Cape Lookout area. We could see anywhere between 6 to 7 inches of rain. And then if you look back here towards Northern Virginia, where David Reese up there in the Charlottesville area, all the way down the spine of the Appalachians, you could see a good spot of 3 to 6 inches of rain from the Interstate 77 corridor back towards the North Carolina mountains. So you can see there's 3 to 4 or 5 inches of rain in the Carolinas and even up to 6 inches in Virginia. So this is my concern. It has been dry around here, but if we get a few days of heavy rain, all in a short amount of time, we could see those flash flood issues pop up. So I don't want you to disregard this, because I know it has been dry over the past couple of weeks. I know a lot of people's lawns and stuff like that are burned up. But again, we do have to watch this heavy rain threat. And this is definitely something we'll be updating throughout the weekend. But again, concerned after tonight, severe weather starts to tick up with these heavy rain totals. And I'm sure, Jared or James, we saw from Jared and Shay yesterday, they had over 8 inches of rain in Charleston, just from a band of showers that moved ashore. So that's something we're going to have to watch here in the next few days.
Yeah, and then, the situation becomes, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but depending on where this rain falls, like we had with the situation in the foothills where you guys got inundated with rain, that causes a situation not only for you guys, but also everyone downstream, where all that water has got to work its way out of the system, which is why we're going to be watching that very carefully. But of course, the severe threat tonight in the form of severe weather has a lot of folks concerned, and Chase on Facebook is watching very carefully here the severe thunderstorm warning in western South Carolina. He actually mentioned that he works for the power company. He's a linesman. He goes out. I don't know exactly what he does, but I know there are a good number of folks who very courageously go out after a lot of these storms come through, and they restore your power when it goes out. And I know I've had that situation here in Charlotte a few times where a storm comes rolling through, the power goes out, and the lightning may not even be out of the neighborhood yet. And, those guys are and men and women are safely trying to make their way back out to get, that vital service back up and running. So it's an incredible job that they do. But he was asking about the winds, and I know we're looking right now on radar and seeing estimated winds of at least 40 to 45 miles per hour. And Chris, is that a little bit what you were seeing when you were driving through some of this earlier today?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably on the backside of it. I believe that'd probably be a pretty safe bet.
You were trying to trail the storm, is that right?
Absolutely. I come in the back door on it and didn't want to get mess around with any hail or anything like that. So, and I was just being behind it, being in the safe space, not having to worry about trying to get out ahead of anything that might be harmful.
I want to replay some of your video, and you guys may have talked about this a little bit, but one of the things folks have seen, not only with the cell that you were chasing earlier in Anderson County at about 7, 8 o'clock or so, but we also had a similar situation in the foothills, is the storms weren't really ripe for producing tornadoes, but we had a couple instances where it was trying to get a little something going down in the lower atmosphere. And I know numerous folks were calling 911 in Anderson County earlier because they saw exactly what you see here in your video. Just talk to us a little bit about what you were watching there for what felt like at least half an hour.
Oh yeah, it's every bit of half an hour. And just the low level shear today wasn't all that great, but still there was enough dynamics there to get a little bit of a wall cloud try to develop. At times, the storm would cycle, which is what they commonly do. It would cycle and produce a little wall cloud. Then it would just kind of fall apart, get a little ragged, and another 10 minutes later it would do the same thing.
Well, we are no longer getting visuals quite like that now that the sun is down, but we are watching kind of the remnants of the activity in that neck of the woods where the National Weather Service has just continued that severe thunderstorm warning that we've been watching in western South Carolina. And I don't know how much of my maps have updated just yet, but I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot here to show you where we do have some new counties added to this. And now we have a severe thunderstorm warning. This is in South Carolina, just north of the Augusta area. And now we're also including until 11:45 Edgefield County and McCormick. So again, this is a severe thunderstorm warning. The severe thunderstorm itself, located 9 miles northwest of Edgefield, is moving southeast at 15 miles per hour. We're watching for 60 mile per hour winds, quarter-size hail being the primary threat for this storm, which is going to infect Edgefield, McCormick, Johnston, Trenton, Parksville, Plum Branch, Murphy's Estate, Clarks Hill, and Willington in the next 45 minutes or so. Now, guys, I don't want to be nitpicky on the verbiage here, but when we hopped on at about 10:30 or so, they were, again, watching the velocity, watching the rotation in that storm, and they had noted in the severe thunderstorm that a tornado was possible, although it was not occurring, and I've noticed they didn't use that vocabulary again, so I guess they're no longer so much concerned about that. We're back to the primary concern being damaging winds and hail.
Yeah, that sounds right, James. Definitely, it doesn't look like that. Excuse me, that rotation is there. So let's hop over to North Carolina. Let's go over to Harnett County if we can, and we'll take a look at this cell. Again, severe thunderstorm warned by the National Weather Service in Raleigh, and I've got my radar scope up. And James has got his radar up. So this cell right here, just moving to the south of the Raleigh-Durham area, those southern suburbs of Raleigh-Durham. You think of, let's see, we have Gardner and Clayton, but right now this storm is moving in the Angier community. I hope I'm saying that right, just outside of Bowie's Creek. So I've got the inspector tool on here, radar scope, James.
Yeah, we're still seeing your face, and as much as we like to see your face, can you want to try that radar scope share again? Yep. And as Scotty mentioned, we use Google Hangouts normally, but they forced us over to Google Meetings, so I apologize. We're flying a little bit into new territory here, but now we got your radar scope. Right. The floor is yours.
So there you go. So we're finally seeing this. So these winds are right around 55, 60 miles per hour. So for this part of Harnett County towards Bowie's Creek, Angier, this is where we are seeing the potential for some damaging winds. Let's turn the velocities off, and we'll just go to reflectivity. This is what you would see on your any given weathercast that you see on your local TV station. This is just the radar beam bouncing off the precipitation that's falling. So pretty heavy rain, thunderstorm, or lightning in this cell. I don't really see any hail spikes or hail cores to this. It looks to be more of a damaging wind threat, with, again, those winds being about 55 to 60 miles per hour. I definitely could see a few more gusts higher than that. But with this storm track, if it continues to move in the direction and continues its strength, you can see it's going to be passing just to the south of Raleigh, near the communities of Gardner and Clayton, actually right over the radar beam here. So we'll continue to watch this cell as it moves into the southern suburbs of Raleigh. But again, looking at the velocity, I would probably would see the Weather Service here in Raleigh extend this morning, because those winds being anywhere between 55 miles per hour, that is kind of our criteria. 58 is our criteria for severe thunderstorms. So with the storm being that close, we definitely will probably see this warning extended as the storm starts to move into the southern suburbs of Raleigh. So James, again, it's a kind of a small, compact warning. But again, with these winds anywhere around 50, 55, 60 miles per hour, it's definitely could produce some straight line damage and winds.
Yeah, I was looking at the storm just to the north of Edgefield. Looks like it's got a nice, really nice little hail core in it. See if I can pull it back up here, and can you guys see that? Awesome. Which storm were you talking about? I'm looking at the storm just northeast of or northwest of Edgefield in South Carolina. Oh, absolutely. Just looking at a vertical profile of the storm, and what you see here is you got the precipitation of the hail core of the storm going up. It looks like just a little bit over 30,000 feet right now, and so that's pretty impressive. And flip it over and look at the correlation coefficient, and you see some lower returns right in the middle. So definitely probably some hail reaching the ground there, just northwest of downtown Edgefield.
And And James, that severe thunderstorm warning has now been extended into the Raleigh metro area. That storm that we were just talking about in North Carolina in the Harnett County, it's now been extended from into Johnston and Wake County until 12:15 a.m. So this severe thunderstorm potentially producing 60-mile-per-hour winds and dime to nickel size hail possible with this storm. It's going to impact locations in Raleigh, Gardner, Fuquay Varna, I love saying that, Clayton, Zebulon, Nightdale, Wendell, Emmett, Lake Wheeler, and Coates Crossroads. So again, that severe thunderstorm warning about 14 miles northeast of the Lillington area, moving northeast at 30 miles per hour. Again, 60-mile-per-hour winds, penny to dime size hail possible. And this will include the Raleigh-Durham area, or the Raleigh area, the Raleigh metro area. So if you have folks who live in Raleigh, let them know that this severe thunderstorm warning is included in their area. And we were talking about this lightning, James, and I put the distance marker on my radar. And the lightning we are seeing right now is about 20 miles from the NC State campus. So
Wow.
You can see a good light show developing in the Raleigh area. These storms, again, about 20 miles from the NC State campus, but we can still see that prolific lightning that continues to spread through the sky here in Raleigh. So let's go over to
We're doing
let's
a
get
lot
to
of bouncing back and forth
Yeah.
between these two severe thunderstorm warnings, and I understand that's a little confusing. And I think to complicate matters, I may have had my mic muted to the broadcast for a little bit, as Samantha just pointed out. So I'm sorry about that. So we are again watching two severe thunderstorm warnings, one in the Raleigh area and one in western South Carolina bordering Georgia. And so we're kind of bouncing back and forth between the two of these.
Yeah, we are. And so here's radar. These are velocities, once again, that we are looking at. This is the storm that's moving into the Raleigh area. Again, 50. Right now, we're seeing about 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts coming through the Angier community. So if you know someone there, tell them make sure to be seeking shelter right now, because these 50, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts can cause some damage. If you live in that area, maybe if you're watching out, live in that area after the storms pass, if you have any damage to report, send that to us. We can send that to the weather office in Raleigh and let them know of the damage that's occurred in your area. But again, this severe thunderstorm warning goes out for another hour. This includes the Raleigh area, Gardner, Clayton, Nightendale, Wendell, Zebulon, and again, the Raleigh area, which includes the NC State campus. So again, a severe thunderstorm warning out for Wake County and Johnson County until 12:15. This storm again moving. It looks like the core of the storm will pass just to the south of Raleigh with the damaging winds. But again, Raleigh in that polygon, so you can expect to see some severe conditions in that area. James?
Thanks, Scotty. And just reminding everyone exactly what a severe thunderstorm warning is. That is 60-mile-per-hour winds or quarter-size hail. So that doesn't necessarily encompass anything with lightning. Lightning is just an added-on bonus here that is just as threatening. And so that's why we're watching that camera so closely, because as Scotty pointed out, it is still some 20 miles from the campus of NC State, but we can see it coming down. We can see the lightning off in the distance. So if you're close enough to hear thunder, close enough to be struck by lightning, certainly time to head inside. Chris, are you still watching back in your neck of the woods, that situation kind of unfolding right now? We have multiple counties still under a severe thunderstorm warning there in western South Carolina. Is that right?
Absolutely. Edgefield and McCormick County until 11:45 for 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. And it looks like they just added on another severe thunderstorm warning back into Georgia, and that would encompass central Wilkes County and northeastern Oglethorpe County and Georgia, and that will go to pull it back up here 11:45 also. Nice big cluster of storms just to the north of Edgefield, heading to the southeast. Really, Highway 23 from Edgefield to Johnston, Ward, Ridge Spring, all those small towns along Highway 23 between Edgefield and Batesburg.
Scotty Powell, you're monitoring social media, and I believe we have a question you wanted to share.
Yeah, since Chris has got that radar pulled up, Andrew Plyer asking about the storms in Chester County heading towards Lancaster, South Carolina. So I've got my radar pulled up on the North Carolina storm. I know Chris has got it on the South Carolina area. So I'll let Chris kind of talk about what's going on there.
Yeah, just looking at the cells heading over toward Lancaster and Chester County. Looks like they're generally weakening right now. That may be because of the storms out ahead of it, maybe stabilizing the air just a little bit. But right now, nothing too significant. Just some heavy rainfall as of right now. Continue to watch it and see what happens. Looking at some of the velocities, 20 to 25 miles an hour indicated wind on the radar. So well below severe limits right now, but just some nice moderate rainfall.
Definitely. So we have Jordan Burns asking if any of this is coming towards Hickory. Let me pop up the Hickory area, since that is my area. We can kind of look at what's going on in the Hickory area. Again, no severe storms moving into the Hickory area, but we do have some rain moving in. Let me go over to reflectivity.
And we should note that Hickory and all the mountains are out of that severe thunderstorm watch.
That is correct. Yes, they are. Just some leftover showers moving through McDowell County. Here's Marion. Here's Nebo, Lake James. Here's Morganton. There's my home. Here's Valdez. And then here's the Hickory area. Just some light showers. So no more severe weather for the Hickory area. Statesville, Alexander County, Caldwell County, Burke, McDowell, Cleveland, Rutherford counties. No more severe weather. Just some leftover showers that should start to dissipate after midnight.
Yeah, and we'll be watching for some of these remaining storms to move further to the south and to the east. And that's kind of what we've been seeing going on here. And if you are just joining us at about 11:20 or so, let me show you where that watch is, because that's where the activity is expected to be concentrated until about 2 a.m. or so, and that is the pink on your screen. So we've got, let me zoom in here a little bit so we can see some county lines, but essentially what's on my screen right now will stretch from Georgia to North Carolina across that mid-belt of South Carolina. So everything from that Georgia border to just outside the Charlotte border is in that severe thunderstorm watch until 2 a.m. But this does not include, it's kind of also sandwiched between the two interstates, if you will. So this is south of 85 and north of 26 and 20. And the other thing I'm kind of standing by on is we're beginning to watch the storms, that one severe thunderstorm warning push a little bit closer and closer to the Augusta area. Is we do have DOT cameras from the Georgia side. And so I got those up here on my screen, and we'll share them as the situation warrants. We don't have any from the actual South Carolina DOT, but we do have access to them from the Georgia side. So we'll be keeping an eye on those as the situation warrants here.
Definitely so. And if you're watching with this night, and we've had a really big number here. That's really great. Thank you for watching tonight. Make sure you follow us on Twitter as well, at Carolina WX Group. We've had a lot of followers on our Facebook page today, and I think we can contribute that to Chris joining us. And for those who are regular followers and listeners, you're going to be seeing Chris a lot more. Chris is going to be joining us as a full-time panelist, so happy to have Chris. And James, we kind of just threw him into the fire today, didn't we?
That's right, and he shot some really beautiful video and was on the phone live with us as he was chasing some of these storms in South Carolina that you're seeing up on your screen once again. So we're looking forward to having his expertise on Wednesday night, but we're really looking forward to having his expertise on nights like this, because these are images that we have not yet been able to bring you before in real time on the Carolina Weather Group, and we're looking forward to having that asset with us here on our stream. So welcome aboard, Chris.
Thank you, guys. Glad to be here.
We're very, very happy to have you, Chris, and know that you're going to bring a lot to our show, and you've definitely already contributed to us this weekend, so we're thankful for that. But again, James, we're about 11:30. I'm not sure how much longer we want to do this, but we can kind of do a little recap here. We do have 2 severe thunderstorm warnings that we are monitoring. I guess actually 3 technically. We have 2 in South Carolina. We also have the one in the Raleigh-Durham area. So I'll take the Raleigh storm, and I know Chris has got radar up on South Carolina. So we'll briefly do, and there's something else I want to mention before we throw back to Chris that's happening back towards the Greensboro area. So let me pop up the radar right quick, and we will. I'm getting a hang of this new program now. So
yeah, I've noticed a couple times your screen shares didn't seem to come on through, but hopefully this one works for us.
All right, is this one working?
Yeah, and we make you nice and big for everyone watching online. There you go.
So here's the severe thunderstorm that's moving into the Raleigh area. So it's moved out of the Angier community. Now it's going into Gardner, Clayton, Nightendale. It's going to pass just to the east of Raleigh, but Raleigh's still in that polygon. So make sure that you are seeking shelter from this severe storm. We can diagnose this storm, kind of look at the wind, see what's happening here by our velocities. And velocities is really just the measurement of the wind that's going on. And this storm's kind of really ticking up. Look at this splotch right here. There's 66, 67 mile per hour wind. And this is pretty close because here's our radar. So how radar works is it kind of beams out and then it hits off the particles and comes back. So this being within a couple of miles of our radar, I'm pretty certain, Chris, James, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain this is coming down to the surface, or at least pretty close to the surface. So these 67, 70 mile per hour winds, we could be seeing some damage coming out of the Wake County and Johnston County area. So if you have family that lives here in the area, please let them know to be seeking shelter. We're seeing 65 to 70 mile per hour winds that's moving into this is actually going over Interstate 40. This 40 passes right through here. So if you're traveling in this area, be sure that you are being careful out there. You might want to pull off interstate into a rest area or a gas station, something like that. Let the storm pass through. But again, this storm causing some pretty serious wind out here, 60, 65, 70 mile per hour. That's just like a weak tornado, so it can produce some damage out there with this storm. So I'm going to go back to our reflectivity before I hand it over to Chris. I was wanting to show you guys what's happening, kind of our HRR models, what James was talking about a little bit earlier, kind of showed this reef layer of development happening in the central and eastern North Carolina. And that's starting to happen. We're starting to see new storms break out over the Greensboro, High Point area, over towards Burlington. up towards the Virginia line. So again, these storms really starting to develop over Winston-Salem, Greensboro. So maybe a stormy night in that part of the world, and that extends all the way down to South Carolina. But again, this storm right now, severe thunderstorm warning for the Johnston and Wake County area. And I hear my weather chat going off, so I want to check it right quick, see what's going on from the Raleigh area. So let me stop share with that.
I think what you're hearing is GSP playing catch up on the storm reports for that storm Chris is going to tell us about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've got Raleigh is talking about the 63, 65 mile per hour winds that's coming through the area. Also been some reports of quarter to dime size hail in the Harnett County area. So that is where this storm was passing through. So again, severe storm warning or severe thunderstorm warning out for the Johnston and Wake County until 12:15. This includes the Raleigh-Durham area. And as we just saw on radar, there's the potential for some damaging winds. So Chris, I'll pass it off to you and let you kind of talk about what's going on in South Carolina.
Awesome. Just monitoring these storms. It's moving out of the upstate into the Western Midlands and the CSRA of South Carolina. It's still got a severe thunderstorm warning. I believe this goes into 11:45 for Edgefield and McCormick County. And I believe I just saw in the GSP chat they canceled the warning for Greenwood. If you guys could confirm that. But 11:45.
You were correct.
Yeah, 11:45 for Edgefield and McCormick County. Looks like the strongest of the storms right now is directly over. It's going to be US 378 between Saluda and McCormick, and continuing to head off to the east-southeast toward the Metro Columbia area. Probably be in the area in the next hour or two. Looking at the overall loop on how things are going here. Let me get this off and get a loop going. You can see as these storms come out of the upstate, right where my mouse cursor is, that a big outflow boundary come off those storms and help get these storms to the south going. So it's kind of neat to watch the progression of the storms like it's happened tonight.
And it's very interesting to see that at 11:30 at night that,
Absolutely.
there's no sun, there's no heating of the atmosphere, and yet these things are still firing.
Right. Just looking at it right now, like I said, the strongest storm right along US 378 between Saluda and McCormick. And let's see if I can get a location tracks back on here. Here we are. And everybody at home can kind of see where this stuff's heading. And check the storm out right here. It's heading down eventually toward to the south of Batesburg, toward Pillion by 12:30ish. And then the storm up closer to Newberry is going to head right down I-26 toward the Columbia area by the same time frame. These storms are moving at about 30 knots, about 35 to 40 miles an hour. This one's a little bit faster, closer to 50 miles an hour. So I think, let me check the warning data real quick again. Yeah, 60 mile an hour wind gust and quarter size hail. Check out the velocities here. Let's just see what the velocities look like. Wow.
That's impressive. That's like
absolutely showing about 45 to 50 miles an hour. So anyone really along, what is this? That's 378 right there. 378 just north of Edgefield, back over towards Saluda. And then anyone along Highway 23 north of Johnston and Ward. It's a lot of peach farms out that way. So definitely maybe some damage to some peach trees.
We can't be having that.
No, not at all.
I like my peaches too much. We can't be having any of that.
Absolutely. And looking back up toward the north, the storm's closer, moving into Chester County. Still about the same, just moderate rainfall at this time. And then if you want to look and see how much rain radar is estimating today. Let's see here. Up over toward Anderson. Looks like they got the bulk of the rain today. Radar showing between 2.5 and 3 inches of rain estimated.
Wow.
Yeah, just to the southeast of or southwest of Anderson.
And I'll just remind folks here as we do get ready to kind of wrap up this live update that the big picture for the remainder of the evening until about 2 a.m. or so is all of these communities in pink here in South Carolina have a severe thunderstorm warning. severe thunderstorm watch until 2 a.m. So the conditions are ripe for severe thunderstorms to develop in these areas. Some have already done so, and as Chris was just pointing out, the atmosphere is still ripe for some new convective storms to get going. So if you live in these areas, you are a prime target for some of those storms. So as you head to bed, it's a good night to have your weather radio on. Our primary concern will be damaging wind and hail, although we have not seen it, but we can't rule out the slightest chance of seeing a tornado. But like we talked about earlier, the concern here is really damaging wind. But that's not as sexy sounding as a tornado, but can be just as devastating. So weather radios are always good. But just like that storm up in Raleigh demonstrates, guys, even if you're not outside this watch, you still have the chance of seeing a storm this evening. The atmosphere is very conditioned for it.
Yeah, so we've got a question from Andrew Plyer. He lives in the Lancaster, South Carolina area, talking about lightning still in the area. And you're going to probably see some lightning with these storms, especially as you get into the South Carolina area towards the east of the PD, over towards eastern North Carolina. There's still a lot of instability, a lot of energy to work with. The atmosphere has not been worked over in those areas like it has been for a good portion of our area here in the western North Carolina area. So I'm trying to get straight with your camera here, James. I see that I'm off. There we go. There we go. I'm better now. So, but again, that's probably what you're seeing. Just that the lightning with these storms that are developing. It's not going to be any severe storms in the Lancaster area, but it's probably picking up these storms here in the probably just outside of the Florence, Darlington, Hartsville area. So again, that's probably what your app's telling you. And sometimes those apps can do some funky things. So, but if you do see some lightning out there, I believe you'll be okay. The main concern is for far southern South Carolina and eastern North Carolina for any severe weather tonight.
And what we will continue to do, and I want to let everyone know this, especially if you're new to the Carolina Weather Group, is even when we are not sitting here, when there is severe weather like this in the Carolinas, we will continue to stream data like you have on your screen right now. So that is the latest text bulletins from the National Weather Service. You may hear weather radio, National Weather Service, NOAA Weather Radio if that's available. We'll have radar. We'll have some of these sky cams up. So we'll continue to monitor the situation. We'll hop back on as the conditions warrant. And then, of course, we have our weekly Wednesday weather show where we talk about weather, science, tech affecting the Carolinas. So that is our staple. That's our flagship. So if you are new, welcome. We hope to see you back here on Wednesday night or the next time severe weather happens. Otherwise, guys, I think we're probably about set to wrap up this live severe weather update here at about 11:30 or so.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Just like James talked about, have that weather radio on tonight, just in case if you needed it. That severe storm moving into the Raleigh area, I've been monitoring it. The winds are starting to come down. They're now more in the 40 to 45 mile per hour range. So that storm's starting to weaken a little bit. So that's good news for those folks. But again, it's been an active day. And guys, it's kind of an abnormal day. We don't really see severe weather set up like this in our area for July. But with the upper level low and a strong jet stream, it kind of just amplified the opportunity for seeing severe weather into the area. And now, as we talked about earlier, this severe threat kind of goes more into a heavy rain threat as we go into Sunday and throughout the next few days. So, again, severe weather kind of starting to dwindle down a little bit, but watch out for some flood issues for the next several days as we go into the new work week.
That's right, and we will be monitoring here on the Carolina Weather Group and bringing you live updates as the situation warrants. Otherwise, we hope you do have a very safe night. We thank you for trusting us with your weather information. And from Charlotte, I'm James Brierton, along with Scotty Powell in the foothills there in Morganton, North Carolina, and to Chris Jackson, who is spending his first night with us as a panelist here in the Carolina Weather Group from outside the Columbia area. Thanks so much to you as well.
Thanks a lot, guys.
And a reminder that Facebook limits our live streams to about 4 hours or so. So be sure to like and follow us. Make sure you set those alerts to on so you'll be notified when we start a new stream because we can't run all night. We'll have to start and stop a few times. So for now, we'll leave you with this camera from NC State in Raleigh where they have a severe thunderstorm warning.